Good morning. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Tom McKenzie in London. These are the stories that set your agenda. Kamala Harris secures enough delegates to become the Democratic presidential nominee, according to an Associated Press tally. Harris says it is time to unite the party and the nation. Asian stocks rise as investors turn their focus towards results from Tesla and Alphabet. Plus, European earnings ramp up. LVMH reports shortly, while Porsche cuts its revenue forecast. And German software giant SAP gets a boost from AI. We're going to be speaking to SAP's CEO in about 30 minutes' time. So the focus shifting from investors away from US politics, arguably more to the economic data that's coming through from the US later this week, as well as a focus, of course, on pricing around the Federal Reserve. Markets still pricing in around 60 basis points by the end of this year, with September firmly priced in at this point. GDP on Thursday, as well as inflation data and the key gauge, the PCE gauge for the Fed, coming out on Friday. The earnings story also front and centre. Before we get that data, of course, with a number of big names crossing later today, including, as we said in the headlines, the likes of LVMH here in Europe, but importantly as well, Tesla and Alphabet out of the US. It was a decent day yesterday, by the way, for the US session, posting gains on the S&P of a little over 1%, so making up for some of the losses of last week. Last week, the worst week for US stocks in about 3 months' time. European futures now pointing higher by just shy of 0.2%. The FTSE 100 currently lower, though, by 0.3. You can look at basic resources and the hit to iron ore for that part of the story. S&P futures looking to a little bit of softness, down 0.2%. Nasdaq futures also low by 57 points after the gains of yesterday, led by the Magnificent Seven. Let's flip the board and look cross-asset. Bloomberg dollar index a little softer in the session today. That's helping some of the Asian currencies. Certainly, Bloomberg dollar index just off by about 1/10%. The US 10-year at 4.23. Yields down just 1 basis point, close to 2 basis points. Euro dollar at 1.08 and Brent trading $82.42. Flat currently on Brent. Let's cross over right now to Singapore. Avril Hong standing by in Singapore for a check on the Asian markets. Avril.
Yeah, Tom, we're seeing Asia's equities in rebound mode, finally catching a break after 3 sessions of declines. Take a look at where the region's benchmark is faring. But it is also important to highlight that apart from the rebound we're seeing in tech shares and indeed on the TAIEX, the tech-rich gauge, it's pretty negative elsewhere in the region, including in China and on Japan equities. The Nikkei has erased gains from earlier in the session of as much as 0.8% as the yen climbs. Now, I'll talk more about the currency in a bit, but flip the board. I wanted to take you to some of the chip names that last week were really getting hard hit. And this was on the back of concerns about whether they would be targeted by the US, concerns about the lofty valuations, as well as some sector rotation. Today, we're seeing a bit of optimism maybe trickling through thanks to what we could see potentially from some of the Mag 7s that report later today and indeed this week as well. So this is what we're seeing in equities, but flip the board again. As I say, we've been seeing the yen climbing, but it hasn't just been doing so against the greenback. It's also been gaining ground in the past 2 weeks against the Aussie and the Euro. And what this kind of tells you is that traders seem to be bracing for a BOJ rate hike next week. And that's despite Bloomberg learning from sources that some policymakers actually see fit for a skip next week. And this is because of weak consumer spending. Another potential driver that we're seeing for the yen is all this US political uncertainty. That could be an environment that prompts yen buying as well. Tom.
Avril, thank you very much indeed for a check on the Asian markets and looking ahead, of course, to that key decision from the Bank of Japan next week. A redhead crossing the terminal right now. This is the wealth manager and private bank over in Switzerland, Julius Baer, naming a new CEO, naming Goldman partner Stefan Bollinger as the new CEO. And according to a statement, Bollinger will start his new role at Julius Baer no later than the 1st of February 2025. The stock year to date is up around 16%. We also have some breaking lines from Sabadell, the focus, of course, of a takeover bid from BBVA. And in terms of the details coming through on the earnings front, as we watch for any lines on that potential takeover, of course, Sabadell net income for the second quarter coming in at 483 million euros. The estimates had been for 423 million. It is a beat for Sabadell. The shares, by the way, up 77% year to date, helped, of course, by that bid from BBVA. So far, Sabadell has rejected that offer, saying it undervalues the firm. It is a beat in terms of the second quarter net income for that Spanish lender, Sabadell, coming in at 483 million euros. Let's get back to US politics now and the latest in terms of the prospects of Vice President Kamala Harris, who has secured enough pledged delegates to clinch the Democratic presidential nomination. That is according to a survey by the Associated Press. Harris says she intends to unite the nation and win November's election.
So in the days and weeks ahead, I, together with you, will do everything in my power to unite our Democratic Party, to unite our nation, and to win this election.
The name has changed at the top of the ticket, but the mission hasn't changed at all. And by the way, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be out there in the campaign with her, with Kamala. I'm going to be working like hell, both as a sitting president, getting legislation passed, as well as in campaigning.
Right, let's get more then from Bloomberg's Vonnie Quinn, standing by in Washington, who's been covering all of this for us, of course. In terms of the latest then, where are we in terms of this nomination process? Vonnie, you talked to us yesterday about the clear road that Kamala Harris had towards that nomination. That seems to have just been solidified in the last 12 hours or so. Can we call her now the presumptive nominee?
In fact, yes, Tom, we can. Anything could happen before the DNC or during the DNC, and we know that she won't formally accept the nomination until then. But essentially, yes, according to the AP and our sourcing as well, she has passed the number of delegates that she would need in order to get a majority at the Democratic National Convention. That's 1,976. So that happened just in the last few hours when we saw Texas, Ohio, and also her home state of California also come on board. But we had party elders continue to endorse her throughout the day on Monday as well, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who was a big one. She will help connect Kamala Harris with the donors, and also more governors, many of whom are said to be being vetted by the FBI right now as possible VP running mates. We are, though, down to business tomorrow. You heard Joe Biden there on the telephone when Kamala Harris was addressing her staff. This was the first time we had heard from either of them in an official capacity. As you can see from those pictures, President Biden's campaign headquarters has now been turned into Kamala's HQ. And I say Kamala because that's how she's branding her campaign. She's going to be conducting her first rally, her first real rally tomorrow in Wisconsin, a key battleground state, home, of course, to the RNC this year, which was really just a few days ago. It's quite incredible to think of how much has changed since the RNC. But clearly, the united front that the Democratic Party is trying to put forward is going to get carried through the rest of this week. It's crucial for the Democrats now to keep the momentum going. Money has been flowing in like crazy. President Biden is also going to be back at the White House tomorrow, according to schedule. He'll arrive there at 2:30 p.m. Tuesday, local time, having been in quarantine. And he will get back to, as he said, the business of legislating and also campaigning for Kamala Harris. She will get right out on the campaign trail to try and make the electorate see who she is, somebody who isn't just a vice president, but could be a potential president.
Yeah, and she clearly, look, there are vulnerabilities here, aren't there? I mean, and certainly those will be exploited by the Trump campaign, or at least they will hope to exploit some of those vulnerabilities. We've heard from J.D. Vance, of course, the VP pick for Trump, taking some pot shots at Kamala in the last 12 hours or so. What do we know about how the Trump campaign is adjusting to this new opponent?
They're casting around a little bit, Tom. I mean, some of the attacks that we've already seen has fallen flat. But of course, there are some general vulnerabilities with just the Democratic position for some voters, right? So immigration is going to be a little bit of a problem for Kamala Harris. Also, the fact that she isn't tested, she doesn't have her policies out there yet. That's going to be something that the Trump campaign will probably try to exploit. They will also most definitely attack her record on economic policy, on inflation and so on, because the Biden campaign and the Biden presidency haven't really managed to put it out to the American people that inflation has been coming down on Biden's watch, that the economic policies have actually been working. People still feel it in their pocketbooks. They feel the effects of inflation. They feel poorer than they did under President Donald Trump. And that's definitely going to be something that the Trump campaign will exploit. But don't forget, she has a lot of strengths too, not least her age. She is 22 years, the former president's junior at this point. She's also not known. She has been out on the campaign trail with President Biden, and her policies are assumed to be similar or the same as President Biden, but we don't know. There's a lot that we will learn about Kamala Harris in the next several months. Plus, she has all those segments of the population. If she indeed becomes president, she would be the first black Asian female to become president. And there are many segments of the population, not least suburban women, that Democrats need to bring with them that will be very happy to see that.
OK, Bloomberg's Vonnie Quinn in Washington, D.C. with all the latest. Thank you very much indeed. Let's stay on this topic and get more insights and bring in Lukens now, senior partner at Signum Global Advisors, someone who was the Deputy Chief of Mission at the US Embassy in London, who's worked with Hillary Clinton in the past and Condoleezza Rice as well, amongst others. Lou, thank you very much for joining us. Is it your assessment at this point that the Democrats are better positioned leading into November?
Well, they're definitely better positioned than they were a week ago. I think we've seen this incredible rallying of the party around Kamala Harris, incredible amounts of money raised in the last 24 hours, as Vonnie mentioned, over $80 million. Kamala Harris now has enough delegates to be the presumptive nominee. The party has really come together to support Kamala Harris, and I think they're excited by the prospect. There is, as Vonnie said, a long ways to go between now and November 5th. So, you know, it's not going to be an easy race, but I think it's been an incredible start to this campaign for Kamala Harris, and she really couldn't have asked for a smoother and better and more enthusiastic kickoff to her campaign in the last 24 hours.
The Republicans have criticised the way that this process has played out. They suggested it's undemocratic. They've talked about the elites in the Democratic Party essentially crowning Kamala Harris. Is there a risk there? Is that a risk when it comes to the way that voters think about this new candidate?
I don't think so, honestly. I mean, I think the outpouring of support that we've seen at all levels of the Democratic base indicates to me that the base and the voters want Kamala Harris. They're on board. The polling that we saw, there's some polling earlier today that showed that 80% of Democrats are enthusiastic about the decision of Joe Biden to step down, but also about Kamala Harris as the candidate. So I don't think, I think, you know, the party has been careful to not make this seem like a coronation, and they've let the people speak. The state delegations are speaking out now, and enough of them have spoken out saying that they will support Kamala Harris. And that is, those delegates represent the voters in those states. So that's not the party elite making that decision. So I think they've actually played this very, very smartly. And I think it's been a combination of support from the party leadership, but also a groundswell of support from the Democratic voters, which is very important going forward.
Who's your money on when it comes to the VP pick for Kamala Harris?
So my money is probably on Mark Kelly, the Democratic senator from Arizona. He's got a great personal history. He's a former fighter pilot, an astronaut, very well liked and respected within the Senate. And critically, he would bring, hopefully, the state of Arizona along for the Democrats. Arizona is one of the 6 swing states that are all in play and where this election will be decided. And Mark Kelly would bring Arizona to play. Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, is another very strong Democratic governor who would hopefully for the Democrats put Pennsylvania into play and put that state in their column. So there are a couple of really good choices out there, but I do think she will pick a white male conservative or moderate Democrat, a centrist Democrat who can appeal to some of the less, you know, she has a great appeal to young voters, to women voters, to African-American voters. There are still sort of white middle-class men who will want to connect with the ticket. And I think the picks that she's looking at are people that will be able to do that for her.
Lou, I want to draw on your experience when it comes to foreign policy, foreign affairs. This is something that you have deep experience in. You've represented the US all over the world during your career for the State Department. Talk to us about the foreign policy adjustments that Harris may make, particularly when it comes to things like Ukraine and NATO. There is concern amongst some leaders, it seems, in Europe as to a lack of clarity, a lack of transparency as to where she stands on some of these key issues.
Well, I think it's actually pretty clear. I mean, Kamala Harris has been very clear. She is going to continue Joe Biden's policies. I don't think we'll see very much divergence, especially on foreign policy. I think a Kamala Harris administration will look like a Joe Biden 2.0, basically. She's been at the president's side for the last 4 years. She's been worked with him on all the key foreign policy issues. She's been involved in all the decision making, and she will, in my belief, continue his policies, especially his approach to working with allies, to working in partnership with allies around the world to solve some of the tough challenges that we face. So I don't see a big divergence in any way by Kamala Harris on foreign policy issues from what we have right now with Joe Biden as president.
Lukens, senior partner at Signum Global Advisors, really smart take on what we've been seeing out of the US and what a Kamala Harris nomination, official nomination, when we get that, as expected, will mean in terms of foreign policy, but also the prospects of the Democrats leading up to that November vote. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up, bond traders reassess the so-called Trump trade as their focus turns back to data and the Fed. Isabel Albarran from Close Brothers joins me in a few minutes to discuss that. And I will be speaking to the chief executives of SAP and Edenred about their latest results and the overlay of AI. That is coming up. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Happy Tuesday. Now, bond traders are reassessing the so-called Trump trades as Vice President Kamala Harris gathers support among Democrats. They are also weighing the political shake-up against upcoming data and the path ahead for U.S. rates. It is a big week in terms of U.S. data, dropping particularly on Thursday in terms of GDP and jobless claims, and then looking ahead to the Fed's key gauge in terms of inflation. Let's bring in at this point then Isabel Albarran, investment officer at Close Brothers Asset Management. Isabel, thanks for coming in. How have your clients been reassessing the US political landscape? What is your advice to people looking to either hedge or position around the changing and rapidly changing US political environment?
Well, I think certainly more uncertainty has emerged in the last couple of days. We had seen that kind of Trump trade begin to gather more momentum. Obviously, the events over the weekend, I think, mean that we're seeing, certainly in betting odds, quite a significant movement in terms of people's expectations. So between now and 19th of August, when we have convention, I think that's a period where we will kind of begin to get a little bit more certainty on what the strategy is for the Democrats. And then I think it's really going to be, it's looking like a much more open race than it was a couple of weeks ago, for sure.
So it makes sense to fade that Trump trade, at least in the margins. Would that be your take at this point?
I think it's worth certainly assessing the risks and thinking about kind of the whole package. I think on the geopolitics side, on trade, there's certainly much less of a gap between those policy stances than we saw in previous elections. So thinking about China, it's not controversial to be hawkish on China. We've seen a lot in terms of tariffs, in terms of restrictions for access, even under the Biden government. So I think we would expect things like that to continue. I think the questions we need to think about is what is going to be the path of fiscal policy? Are we going to see a lot more borrowing? And secondly, immigration. The fact that we've seen higher immigration, that has helped to take some of the heat out of the labour market. So how do those two factors impact inflation?
Do you think investors are still underrating the risks of fiscal expansion under a potential Trump presidency and the inflationary risks linked to that?
I think given Trump has been polling very strongly, certainly, going into this election, we can reasonably assume that that is appreciated by the market. It's no secret. You just need to look at the previous term and the record on borrowing to get a steer on that. So I don't think that's so much of an underappreciated risk, but it's certainly going to become more front and centre in the minds of both investors and the Fed.
And on the Fed, expectations that December is almost locked in for the Fed. The markets are certainly betting on a cut in September, around 60 basis points priced in by the markets by the end of the year. Does that align with your thinking in terms of the sequencing of how the Fed goes from here? How does that play out into next year? How are you projecting into next year on the Fed?
So I think it's certainly everything that's happened. If we think about recent months, we've seen that softening of data beginning to come through. And we've seen, corresponding with that, much more of a dovish note in Fed guidance. So, we had the June minutes that kind of betrayed almost more concern than you might have got from the meeting itself. We've had testimony from Powell.
Powell wants to cut at this point.
I think, certainly once the data is in place, then there is a willingness to do that. And especially because by the Fed's own admission, you've got space to cut without making policy accommodative. So I think that gives them sort of a bit of cover. So I think it remains, data dependent. We've got to see how the data evolves. Into 2025, it could become a bit more of a nuanced situation, especially given the considerations with fiscal policy.
I want to get your take on the BOE, but before we go there, briefly on September, the Fed, there's been some within our own team of strategists suggesting that 50 basis points, they could go for a jumbo cut in September to give them the runway, not to have to act again before the November election in the US. Would 50 basis points seem a step too far, or would that appear appropriate at this point?
I think the issue there is, yes, you're kind of giving yourself a breather. You don't have to act again this year, but you're also taking away your optionality. And I think in the last year or so, we've really seen how much central bankers value that optionality. OK. On the Bank of England, then, what is your view in terms of August? Question marks about the sustained nature of the downturn in inflation here. Yes, absolutely. So we've seen inflation heading steadily lower. We've been at 2% for 2 months. But for the rest of the year, we're actually expecting to see a bit of a revival in inflation. Now, I don't think that should worry the Bank of England unduly. But I think the re-acceleration we're seeing in some of the data should give them reason to maybe hang on a little bit longer. So I think August is a key meeting. We get a monetary policy report. We're going to get an update on forecast, which is really crucial. Is CPI going to be below 2% at the end of that forecast? We're going to get an update on guidance. And crucially, I'm going to be looking for, do we see a change in that voting pattern, which we didn't actually get in June, but we did get quite a lot of nuance within the hold contingent. There was disagreement there. So expecting a September move, but keeping an eye on what the report says. OK. Isabel, thank you very much indeed on the crucial nature of that August meeting at the Bank of England, and also the view, of course, of how politics is being overlaid across your strategy and the uncertainty that continues, of course, there. Isabel Albarran, Investment Officer at Close Brothers Asset Management. Thank you. Coming up, S&P's cloud revenue rises 25% as AI demand boosts the German software firm's growth. CEO Christian Klein gives us his first interview since the results came out. That is up shortly. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to other stories making the news this Tuesday. A US House committee has called on the Chief Executive Officer of Crowdstrike, George Kurtz, to testify on a defective software update that caused widespread global outages. Congressional committees have the power to compel testimony by issuing subpoenas, but usually first ask witnesses to appear voluntarily. Delta Airlines says it expects to cancel more flights this week as it tries to recover from a crippling tech outage. Delta cancelled more than 800 takeoffs yesterday, bringing its total since Friday's meltdown to more than 4,600. More than half of the airline's worldwide IT relies on Microsoft Windows operating system that was affected by the software error. And Wiz has turned down a takeover bid of as much as $23 billion from Alphabet. The cybersecurity startup says it will instead stick to its planned IPO. Wiz connects cloud storage providers and scans data stored there for security risks. Coming up, investors will be watching for a robo-taxi update from Tesla as it reports today. Meanwhile, Porsche has a parts supply problem. Our Autos Roundup is next. This is Bloomberg.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Tom McKenzie in London. These are the stories that set your agenda. Kamala Harris secures enough delegates to become the Democratic presidential nominee. That's according to an Associated Press tally. Harris says it is time to unite the party and the nation. Asian stocks rise as investors turn their focus towards earnings from Tesla and Alphabet. Plus, European earnings ramp up as well. LVMH reports shortly, while Porsche cuts its revenue forecast. German software giant SAP gets a boost from AI. We're going to speak to SAP CEO in just the next couple of minutes. Let's check in on the markets then. A brighter picture across the European and US space yesterday. Gains coming through for Mag 7 stateside, lifting the S&P above 1%. A little bit of profit taking right now, it seems. Futures pointing a little lower on the S&P E-minis, down by just shy of 0.2%. Nasdaq futures off by 58 points, off by 0.3% as we lead up to the earnings from Tesla and Alphabet, as we mentioned. FTSE 100 futures taking a bit of a hit from what's happening in basic resources. So we watch the miners at the open at 8 a.m. UK time, currently down 0.3% on the FTSE 100. European futures, though, pointing to modest gains of just 7 points at this stage. Let's flip the board and look at cross-asset in terms of the money moving into treasuries once again. So yields a little lower on the benchmark 10-year, currently at 4.23. Yields down just over 1 basis point. The Bloomberg Dollar Index is also a little softer in the session, down 0.1%. Euro dollar at 108. Brent's flat, $82.40 in the session. Let's get to the earnings story, though, with a focus on AI and software here in Europe. German software giant SAP reporting cloud revenue up 25% in the second quarter, in line with estimates. This is growing demand for services to run AI applications, pushes more clients to subscribe to SAP's products. I'm very pleased to say I'm joined now by the company's CEO, Christian Klein. The stock is up around 33% year to date. Christian, good morning. Thanks for joining us. And on these earnings, what do these earnings tell us about the prospects for the shift to cloud and those software subscriptions by your clients in the quarters ahead?
Yeah, good morning, Tom. And indeed, Q2 came in very, very strong. SAP is expanding market share. And why is that? Our cloud momentum is continuously strong, backed by very strong results in business AI. And business AI, we embed business AI in the systems, in the business processes of our customers. And in Q2, 20% of the deals customers paid directly for AI, and it influenced actually every single deal in Q2. Also, because of the internal rollout of AI and our transformation program, we could increase our profit ambition for 2025.
OK, that's really interesting. So I want to unpack a little bit of that. It's pretty fascinating because some of your competitors, and of course, I'm thinking the likes of Salesforce and Workday, they've faced a more challenging environment in terms of these software sales. What are you getting right then? What is driving the growth at SAP?
Our key offering, Rise with SAP, we are not only focusing on moving customers to the cloud. We look into their business model transformation. So when you talk about SAP, it's all about how can you actually grow your business. I mean, take ExxonMobil, one of our largest customers now in the cloud. They are moving towards renewable energies, and our software is key for that. Or when you talk about resiliency of supply chains, we infuse AI. We are connecting your supply chain with the operations of thousands of your suppliers. And that's why SAP is so relevant these days.
Christian, what is the generative AI strategy, though, for SAP?
I mean, Tom, when you have over 300 million end users who are working with our software every day, our AI Copilot tool sits on top. And we are automating activities. The AI Copilot does analytics for you. We are actually also making sure that the AI Copilot can screen, millions of contracts. There is no data entry anymore into an SAP system. Second, if you want finance, if you want supply chain, if you want procurement, and you can embed generative AI into sourcing, into closing the books in the finance area, or in attracting and hiring the best talents in HR, generative AI unfolds a lot of value. And we are not delivering AI side by side. We are embedding it in the business of our customers. And that resonates extremely well.
So cloud growth of 25% in the most recent quarter. Is that the kind of growth? Can you sustain that growth, 25% or above, in the quarters ahead, Christian?
I mean, what we can influence is, of course, our pipeline. And we delivered a very strong half year one. Pipeline looks very healthy also for the second half of the year. Now let's execute. For me, it's very important what we promise we have to deliver. That worked out really well. And yes, we stay and we remain confident for the second half of the year.
And you talked about implementing AI within the business, as well as the AI products that you're shifting to your customers. In terms of implementing it across SAP, and you talked about the efficiencies, just quantify that for us. Can you put a dollar number or a euro number on the cost savings coming through as you implement AI within the business?
Yeah, we expect actually a triple-digit million number of cost savings this year. And what do we do, Tom? I mean, when you look into marketing and sales, we do digital marketing. We want to understand our current customers better. We actually prepare our salespeople about what is the next step. What does this customer need? What kind of software could this customer need? When you go into development of SAP, we are also have a co-pilot for developers, tool for developers. So we are automating, we are testing code. And so we can boost the productivity of our developers by 30%. In finance, in procurement, we are screening contracts with generative AI, which was very manual before. And all of that is also helping to increase our profit ambition for 2025. And Tom, that also gives us a lot of credibility because SAP wants SAP.
Okay. And Christian, in terms of what that means, look, talk to me about the job cuts then. I mean, you're pushing through a pretty significant restructuring. Where are we on the restructuring, and to what extent is AI replacing jobs in the business?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, yes, indeed. Yeah, we are driving a transformation program. And yes, we have a voluntary program in place. It's attractive. People are accepting this program. And what it helps, it actually reduces job profiles which are not of so high demand anymore in the future. We are lifting and shifting all of our hirings in future growth areas. Data scientists for AI, architects for our customers to drive their business transformation. So we are also rehiring, and that helps us to sustain our very high growth also in the years to come.
In terms of the backlog, Christian, 28% in terms of the backlog of client orders that are propelling or at least sustaining some of the growth and putting something of a floor under this business. Is that backlog, to what extent are you going to be working through that by the end of this year? And to what extent does that remain a ballast for the business going forward?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, you can believe, I mean, I'm sleeping better overnight now when you have such a massive backlog already in the books. I mean, this is committed revenue, which will, come in the next 12 months. And we are actually, seeing now a backlog of over 14 billion euro. That gives you high predictability. It gives the company a lot of resiliency. And when you look at the pipeline, we are very confident that we can sustain this growth also in the second half of the year. So that also is why we are also so confident to also meet our expectations for the guidance 2025.
Okay, Christian Klein, SAP CEO. Thank you very much indeed for your take, of course, on these earnings and the importance in terms of the AI story within the business, but also how it's been integrated into products going forward, the demand picture as well. Christian, thank you very much indeed. To another update in terms of the corporate space, but switching focus to the auto sector. Toyota, of course, over in Japan, Toyota Motor Company, set to announce the buyback of its own shares from major Japanese banks and insurers. This part of a 1 trillion yen repurchase plan and a broader program, apparently to unwind strategic shareholdings and financial partners. This is according to people connected with the details around this. 1 year, as you can see, over 12 months, the stock, Toyota, up 33%. The other big picture item that's coming on the macro front is in India, where we're going to get details in terms of the budget. The first budget, by the way, we're going to get live pictures, I believe. The first budget under this new coalition government, of course, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So a focus on how they balance the need to address some of those demands from coalition partners to spend heavily in some of their states versus pressure coming through from some of the corporate ratings agencies who want to make sure that, of course, India keeps its deficits under control. You can see live pictures there, and that is the finance minister, I believe, Nirmala Sitharaman, presenting that budget. It's around 9 minutes, and you can see the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, there as part of this new coalition. A coalition, of course, government that he hasn't had to deal with before, so some offsetting may be needed to assuage his new coalition partners. We keep across that story for you. Now, the Magnificent Seven earnings are getting underway. Alphabet is expected to see a sales boost from its cloud units and a recovery in core search business. When it reports later today, investors will also be looking for signs of progress in AI as the company continues to compete, of course, for dominance against rivals including OpenAI and Microsoft. In recent months, the company has faced challenges incorporating more AI functionality into its search engine. And Tesla set to report second quarter results later today as well. Investors will be looking for updates on the company's future plans as it juggles an increasing number of projects. For more on this, let's bring in Bloomberg's Asia transport correspondent Danny Lee, always with the details on the auto space. Joining us out of Hong Kong. Danny, Tesla's already reported second quarter sales, which were, 5% lower than the previous year? I mean, they're better than expected, but nonetheless, sales have been falling at Tesla. What are you going to be looking for today, then, from these numbers?
Yeah, we're looking for, and Wall Street is looking for, second quarter revenue of $24.63 billion and an adjusted EPS of 60 cents a share. Now, the backdrop to that, as you said, is the sales number, which we got for the second quarter. It's the second consecutive quarter on a year-on-year basis, which sales have fallen. And so we didn't get much color at the start of the month when these numbers were released. So what exactly is driving these kind of sales fall? But we knew this was going to be a tough year for Tesla and for Elon Musk. He had flagged that earlier. It was going to be a noticeably downbeat year on growth. And so what can it do to try and stimulate growth as it goes through a transition period? Are we going to hear more? Analysts, are they going to hear more about lower affordable kind of EV that Tesla has touted for a while? Even more potentially on a robo-taxi, which we were expecting in a couple of weeks' time to hear more from Tesla about, but we're going to hear more about that hopefully maybe by October. So there's been a bit of a delay there. But overall, the stock is a bit flat on the year, still better than it was down around 43% only a couple of months ago.
Yeah, flat for year to date for Tesla. It's pretty marked, isn't it, in terms of the need for a catalyst for this business. So we'll see if that comes through with more details, as you say, on projects like the robo-taxi. Meanwhile, German legacy automaker Porsche, then, Danny, cutting its revenue forecast for the full year. What's going on with Porsche at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's a string of bad news out there for Porsche, but specifically it's blaming its supply chain and an act of God combined, which is going to take a hit to full-year revenue. Specifically, full-year revenue is expected to be 39 to 40 billion euro now. That's down from 40 to 42 billion euro. And the consequence is we may actually see the first annual fall in revenue for the first time since at least 2010, which is data going back on the Bloomberg terminal shows. So clearly not a good sign there as it faces numerous challenges. And on Monday, it already had just abandoned its EV targets of having EV sales make up 80% of its sales by 2030. So it's still a question of when and not if. But one of its biggest problems, though, is the China market. It has just dispensed with its CEO of the China market as sales fell 33% in the half year. So clearly a lot of challenges there for Porsche on the top line, on sales in one of its key markets, and on the big EV transition.
Danny Lee, Bloomberg's Asia transport correspondent, on the travails for Porsche and the outlook for Tesla as well. Really big day, of course, in terms of the earnings story for that EV maker. Danny, thank you very much indeed. Coming up, payment solutions company Edenred reports first half EBITDA ahead of estimates. We're speaking exclusively to the CEO, Bertrand Dumazy. That is next. Also a view, of course, on French political turmoil and a touch point in terms of the global labour market. That's coming up. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. Now, Emmanuel Macron has called for a political truce during the Summer Olympics in Paris, which begin this Friday. The French president dissolved the lower house of parliament last month, leaving it with no clear path to form a new government. It is possible that Macron could now wait until after the Games end in August to appoint a prime minister. Now, Paris-based payment solutions company Edenred has reported first-half earnings ahead of analyst estimates. For more on the results and a view in terms of the global labour market, I'm joined exclusively by the CEO, Bertrand Dumazy, and we'll get a view as well on the French politics. Bertrand, thank you very much for joining us. We'll start on the earnings before we get to the nutty subject, or the knotty subject, I should say, of French politics. In terms of these earnings, in terms of the numbers, a beat then coming through for you in the business. How does this set up Edenred for the quarters ahead?
In fact, we are very confident for the quarters ahead because the strategy we developed starting in 2022 is bearing fruit. So if you look at the numbers of 2021, which is our year of reference, and you look at our landing in 2024, you multiply all the numbers by 2, and you have our landing by the end of 2024. So it has been a good ride, doubling the size of the company in 3 years. And basically, when you look at the drivers we have, there are a lot of tailwinds that will continue to fuel the growth of Edenred. Once again, Edenred is serving 60 million people around the world. We are the everyday companion for people at work, and we provide digital services to improve the purchasing power of the workers everywhere around the world, but also the mobility of those workers. And we also develop some corporate payment solutions, which is a booming market. Mm-hmm. So to make a long story short, strong from our strategic plan and our results for the last 3 years, we are very confident for the years to come.
And you talk about the expansion, so I want to get your views in terms of the geographies in focus for you, Bertrand. Which geographies are proving most promising at this point, and which parts of the world are looking most challenged?
In fact, as I said, we are in 45 countries. First of all, if you look at Asia, Asia is doing well. The labor market is very good, and in fact, you have more and more willingness for Asian business leaders to go after, benefits, engagement, and mobility solution for their people. Then if you look at Latin America, especially Mexico, Brazil, and to a certain extent Argentina, the situation is getting better day after day. Those economies are buoyant, and knowing that we do almost 30% of our revenue in Latin America, those countries are countries of growth for Edenred. Then if you look at Europe, in fact, the southern part of Europe is doing well. Italy is doing well, Spain is doing well, Portugal is doing well. The northern part of Europe is doing well also. So in Europe, in fact, you still have a lot of room for growth for Edenred.
On the politics of France, then, you're joining us out of Paris, the wonderful capital, of course. In terms of the political impact, have you felt it across the business?
In fact, the month of June and July are not good months because people are waiting for the new government to come. So this political instability is not very good for the business. Having said that, for Edenred, we are doing 16% of our business in France. So the impact is not huge, but it's true that everybody in France would like to see more stability and more visibility on the future of the government.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a gauge, Bertrand, as to when that stability comes to the fore? I mean, are you bracing you in the business for prolonged political uncertainty at this point?
No, but you said it before. The president asked for truth between during the Olympic Games. So probably a new government will be formed after the Olympic Games. And by the way, it means stability because it means that the current government is still in charge, and stability is probably the best to welcome millions of visitors in France for the Olympic Games. And so after that, probably there will be a new government.
There's a lot of hand-wringing amongst investors and the analyst community around this left-wing coalition. But arguably, if you were to get a left-wing government in France, their policies would boost the purchasing power of workers. Would you benefit from that kind of setup?
In fact, left or right, everybody agrees on the fact that giving more purchasing power to the workers in France is a good thing. So all the digital services that we are providing are, let's say, cross-party. There is no political issues behind that. And as I said, we are in 45 countries, so we are used to work with the left or with the right, knowing that, once again, everybody agrees on more purchasing power for the working people.
Yeah. On M&A, you've been quite active on acquisitions. You've pulled the trigger on a couple of deals this year. Is there more that you're looking to add? And if so, which parts of the business are you looking to build on?
In fact, first of all, we are very much engaged into the electrical vehicle revolution. If you have an Edenred card, you have access to more than 600,000 charging points everywhere in Europe. And in fact, we decided to go further and faster by making the acquisition of Spirit, who is a leading digital platform for the management of all those charging points. Because if you put yourself in the shoes of fleet managers, they have to manage the conventional fleet with our multi-energy card, but they also have to manage the charging point and make the consolidation in the cloud of all this data to be efficient in terms of fleet management. That's why we decided to make this acquisition in Denmark and to accelerate the deployment of our solutions everywhere in Europe and hopefully in the rest of the world. To give you an idea, we just signed with Audi to be, the software manager of their main charging stations around Europe.
OK, before we let you go, just a quick one on the Olympics. The Olympics kicking off, of course, in Paris on Friday. Are there Olympic-related perks that employers are going to be issuing to their employees? Do you benefit from the Olympics? How are you thinking about the Games?
First of all, it's a pride. As you know, Mr. de Coubertin was the founder of the modern Olympic Games. So 1 century after 1924, the entire nation is super happy to welcome the entire world and to showcase our ability to manage those kind of events. Then what does it mean for the workers? Yes, we saw, in fact, some perks that were given to make sure that the French nation has enough to fully benefit from these worldwide events. The other thing I would like to say is, sports is super important in the sense that the only asset you have is your health, and health is the combination of food, which is what we are doing, but also well-being, which we are doing, and finally, physical activity. So I hope that the legacy of the Olympic Games in France will lead to incentive for French people to do more physical activities. And if it is so, you can count on Edenred to propose some solutions.
OK, Bertrand Dumazy, CEO of Edenred in Paris. Thank you very much indeed. There's plenty more coming up. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back. Are investors sensing that the race for the White House in November is becoming a little closer? That seems to be what's playing out, at least in terms of this basket of Democrat policy gainers being put together by Goldman Sachs. It sold off last week. It is gaining again and did do in the session yesterday. So we watched that. Let's flip the board. A big day in terms of earnings. Alphabet in focus. Look for details around the cloud unit. Look for details around the core search business. And, of course, how they're integrating AI. Let's flip the board and have a look at Tesla. Another big earnings story, of course, the robo-taxi. Will Musk give us some details on that? And in terms of the sales slump, is that expected to continue? Tesla in focus as well. Coming up in the opening trade, we're speaking to the CEO of Airbus, Guillaume Fauré, live from Farnborough. That's at 8:30 a.m. UK time. This is Bloomberg.